All right. I think we're live. Awesome. We are live. Welcome to another lesson, another week of lessons. Awesome. We got some people in the comments already. Welcome, Darlene. Welcome, Tamashi. This is going to be a lot of fun. Today is where all the work starts to pay off and we can finally start scoring our themes and learning things like tempo mapping and such. In fact, let's just kind of dive right in. All right. So today we are going to be touching on tempo mapping and scoring, which is exactly what the title is. So, couple check-in things real quick. I'll be going off my lesson plan. If you want to download and follow along with the lesson plan, the link is in the description below. All right. So, as usual, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the comments below. As a quick reminder, if you haven't signed up for the competition yet, there is still time. You can sign up, I believe, until July 21st. Use the code TABLETOP to get 10% off your registration. It's a super fun competition. I highly recommend. And then, of course, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future lessons. So with that, today I'm just going to dive right in. We'll talk about tempo mapping, and then before we actually dive any deeper, then I'll start looking at the comments and such. But let me get this out of the way. And yeah, so tempo mapping is essentially just the art or the process, whatever you want to call it, of figuring out what tempo and what time signature are going to work best for a scene. Now, the reason why I like to create my themes first is because it gives me a little idea of what to work with. So I know already that this theme is written in 4/4 time and with a tempo of 70 BPM. Now, when we start tempo mapping, changing tempos, experimenting with different time signatures, stuff like that, it can really quickly mess up your whole template. Or it can mess up your markers. It can mess up your kind of placement of themes and stuff. So to keep things from getting too messy, what I will usually do is I'll just create a new file. All right, so I'm going to say here, new folder. I'm going to say scene 1. I'm going to go in here, and then I'm going to put down scene 1 underscore La vida de una piñata. We are going to save. And now that I've got a separate file on hand, I am going to basically delete everything that I don't need. All right, so we'll delete this. Actually, let's just remove selected tracks. Yes. Remove selected tracks. Yes. So all we've got now is we've got our film, we've got our marker track, we've got a signature track, and a tempo track. Those are the things that you're going to need to get started with scoring and tempo mapping. All right. That's video, audio, so you can watch it. You need a time signature track because we're going to be experimenting with different time signatures. You'll need a tempo track so that we can actually experiment with different tempi. And then, of course, different marker tracks because we're going to need to follow along with our spotting notes and finding the hit points that we were talking about in the last lesson. So once you've got this, we've got to take some extra precautions to make sure things don't change. For example, look at, in particular, the marker track. All right, so the marker track, we have scenes. I am going to very quickly say, all right, so scene 1 starts here and it ends here. All right, so we know that this is kind of our area that we're working with. In fact, to work with this, I am going to just very quickly, let's find out what frame are we on. I'm going to find out the beginning. I'm just going to trim it. So if we go back to my spotting notes, I can go to my spotting notes. I know that it starts on 5 seconds, second frame. That's where the scene starts. So that's what I'm going to do here. Time code 5 seconds in. Second frame. So is it right here? Yeah, it looks like it's right here is where it starts. Because if we go to the first frame, it's darkness. So let's just say we'll trim these, delete them because this isn't the actual film file. And then I'm just going to kind of trim down here as well. We got scene 2 where we see that scene 1 ends, again, 50 seconds in, 15th frame. And all I'm doing is I'm just kind of like cleaning things up to work with my spotting notes. So 15th frame, we'll trim here. We've got our scene. Oh, awesome. Indie Film Music Contest liked my post about the lesson. So hopefully that's awesome. That's cool. All right, so we've got our scene started. Now I'm going to just kind of remove this. I'm going to start a new marker track from scratch so you guys can follow along. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go through and put in our spotting notes. So when we were doing spotting earlier, we noticed that there were kind of 5 hit points. And as a reminder, a hit point is a moment where the contour of your story changes. And you can match that change in story contour with a shift in your music. If you weren't here for the last lesson, a change in contour for the story basically means you have new information. All right, that new information progresses the story in some way, either by changing the emotion, by changing the energy level, or introducing a new bit of plot information or story information of some sort. So we found 5, or I found 5. You may very well find more or less. This is kind of about what you decide is most important for the story. So I found the opening is the very beginning, so that makes sense. Let's make sure we have a point there. So we'll go, the beginning is right here, 5 seconds, 2 frames. The next point that I found, where did my notes go? Here they are. The next point that I found was at 18 seconds, 8th frame. So let's find that, shall we? That's 20 seconds right here. Let's zoom in a little bit, 18 seconds, 6th frame. Oh, right there, right on 18 seconds, 8th frame. And in my notes, it says that this is where the tick marks start. Yep, there we go. So for me, I thought that was an important hit point because this is the moment in the play, in the short film where we are realizing how long the piñata has been here. All right, so I've got that point in. The next one I'm going to go through, I'm going to find is 25 seconds, 1st frame, and that's when we hear the door open. So 25 seconds, keep zooming in, 3rd frame, 25 seconds, 1st frame. So I'll mark that. I now have 3 out of my 5 hit points. The next one is 31 seconds and 10th frame. And we found all of these last week. So if you're following along with your own project, you can follow along using your own hit points wherever you put those. Maybe use the same ones as me. Maybe you didn't. There are no wrong or right answers. There are just effective and ineffective ones. The effective ones being the ones that you can explain a reasoning for. So 31 seconds, 10th frame. This is when the piñata freezes. So maybe it was a little bit later than that. So a little bit later, but we've kind of got that information. Let's move that over here. So what was that? 31 seconds, 18th frame, around there. 31:20. We'll say 31:20. Let's move that. I don't know why I got that one wrong. So 31:20, I'm going to adjust that. 31:10, it was 31:20. Maybe it was just a typo. And then the last hit point was 36 seconds and 15th frame. So we'll go in, 36 seconds, find the 15th, that's the 12th frame. 15th, right here. And voila, we have our hit points. Now, here's where things are very important, all right? These hit points cannot move as we're adjusting our tempo. All right, if you have a hit point and it is marked to this specific moment, if we change the tempo and you haven't set things up properly, it might very well change the location. So for example, right here, I'm going to swap this. You see a little note here. We have toggled the time base to be musically related. What this means is that these marker points are now paired to a specific beat or subdivision of the beat, which means if I change the tempo, their location will also change to make sure it stays with that specific beat. So if I speed up the beat, so it's going faster, right now we've got it at 70 BPM. If I go to, say, 90, we suddenly see all of our hit points shift to the left because the tempo is moving faster now, which means these specific subdivisions and beats are taking place sooner time-wise. I want to avoid that. I want to make sure that they are set to the time code so that each of these hit points are assigned to a very specific second and frame so that no matter what I do to my tempo, it won't change. So for that, I'm going to make sure I've toggled it to time-based. For cue-based, you've got this nice handy little thing. If it doesn't show up, go to track control settings. This little window menu will appear, and it means that probably you've got this hidden. So if that's set, I forgot to hit OK. So if I go remove and apply, suddenly we see it's missing. So if it's missing, go to track control settings, toggle time base, add, apply, boom, there we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click it to make sure that this little clock is showing. Because if the clock is showing, it doesn't matter how fast my tempo is. The hit points will remain constant. They will always be attached to that one frame. So once I have that frame set up, I want to lock it so I can't accidentally move any of these anywhere. They will always stay locked to the one spot. So that's how you kind of keep things nice and clean. You also want to do this with your audio as well. Set it to time base and lock it. Do it to anything that you can. All right, for us, we just got markers. We've got our audio. Time signature and tempo aren't as important because those are the things that we will be manipulating. All right, so any questions so far? Welcome. We got some more people. Visme, welcome. And Matt, awesome. Welcome. We got some more people. Wonderful. Any questions so far? We've kind of just in the pre-tempo mapping stages, which if you're following along with the notes, like I said, you can download these below. We've basically got just steps to avoid a messy tempo mapping, because if you don't take these steps ahead of time, then every time we change the tempo or change the time signature, things are going to get moved around. It's going to get frustrating. It's going to cause all kinds of issues. But if there are no questions, which it does not look like there are, we can kind of move on to the next step, which is actual tempo mapping. All right. So as I said earlier, the whole point of tempo mapping is to find a tempo and time signature that works well for the scene. Preferably, you can use some changes, but preferably you want those changes to be as few and far in between as possible. All right? So, because you gotta want to think it intelligible. You want to be able to follow music. If you're constantly changing your tempo every beat or changing your time signature, your music is going to suffer for that because there's going to be no consistency. Now, when you're trying to find what we would call an appropriate tempo or time signature, the idea is we essentially want our beats to hit, our hit points to land on an appropriate beat. All right, so with each of our hit points, we talked about how you can have changes in your music that match these important moments in the story. Now, the kind of changes you can have in your music can be anything related to those three functions of film music that we talked about in lesson number 1. All right, if you remember those, there were these psychological functions. So you could hit a hit point by changing the emotion of the music. A hit point could mark a change in kind of some information where you reveal thoughts of a character or intentions of a character. You could use a physical function. So you could mark a hit point with a change in musical setting. For example, we've got 3 sound palettes here. We're working with a kind of folk music type group, some southwestern folk music, mariachi music kind of thing. We've got an orchestral one, and we've got a combination of the two. So one physical function is we could change between those sound palettes. We could also try to mimic specific movements. So if the piñata gets excited and quickly runs, we could have a moment where, like at this hit point, just hit that with a very quick kind of upward scale on the xylophone or something else, similar to like Mickey Mousing. And the third one, we've got psychological, physical. The third one is technical. And the big one is that at any of these hit points, we could just trigger a specific theme or motif associated with an idea or character in our story. So those are kind of the main ideas. But really, you can work with anything you would like. Now, the trick behind all of this is trying to figure out what you want to do ahead of time. Different composers have different ideas. I just recently had an interview with Zach Heidi, where he says when he spots, he will add his own little marker track, another one, and just make notes. Like at a certain moment, surprise at this moment, or upward running scale at this moment. Just different ideas he comes up with at different moments in the scene. And as he does it, he will just kind of keep notes of what he wants to do, what kind of hit points he wants to do, what he wants to do with the music. Because once you know what you need to do with the music, that informs what you can kind of do with the structure and what kind of tempo or time signatures you should be working with. So as we do this, we've got our spotting notes. We should already have a kind of an idea here, all right? We know that in the opening, in this first section, I want to open up with kind of a lethargic, kind of a folksy kind of version of the piñata's theme. Then at the tick marks, we can just still keep going with the same theme, just kind of change the mood slightly. Then at 25 seconds in the first frame, we swap to the little girl's theme. We've got these basic kind of little ideas we want to do. So what we want to do now is go through each of these hit points and come up with a definitive plan of what it is we want to try and do. How are we going to match these hit points with special events in our music? And as we do this, we just want to take a sorry. It's been a long day, all right? I'm a little scatterbrained at this moment. But as we move along, we just want to kind of pay attention to those three functions, all right? What can we do to fulfill the physical function of the music? What can we do to fulfill the psychological function of the music? And, of course, what can we do to fulfill the technical function of the music? So, real quick, let's watch our scene, and then we can go through and find the hit points. Sad little piñata. Hit point number 2 for the tick marks. Excitement. And there we go. We've got the scene. All right. So first hit point. I'm going to use this. I'm going to look at the first kind of section we've got going on here. All right, just go to the scene. Kind of sad. All right, so that's section 1. Section 1, right off the bat, I'm going to bring up my notes here. Section 1, why is that all caps? You know what, let's leave it. Section 1, let's zoom in a little bit. What do I want to do? I already know that I want to introduce the piñata's theme. All right, I want to introduce the piñata's theme. It doesn't necessarily all need to fit in this one section, but it should at least start. All right, I want to evoke a kind of lazy, sad, kind of atmosphere. All right, they're in an empty store in the desert. All right, there's not really a lot going on. The cashier is sitting behind the cash register just reading a newspaper or a magazine or something. All right, so this is kind of the main thing I want to do. All right, so next I can look at section 2. Actually, let's take a quick moment to look at the 3 functions. All right, so first, technical function, I'm introducing an important theme. All right, so again, remember the 3 functions we've got. Actually, let's do a quick summary of these up here. All right, so we've got 3 functions. We've got psychological. So reveal emotions, thoughts. We have physical, which is highlight action on screen, which has locations, which has settings. And then we have the technical function, which is use themes / motifs to tell the story. So on this hit point, how am I using all 3 of these? All right. First, introducing the piñata's theme, I am using the techno function. I'm introducing one of the, if not the most important themes of the story. Then evoking a kind of a lazy, sad atmosphere. This is kind of the psychological, all right? We're setting up that this is kind of an abandoned area. There's not a lot of energy. There's not a lot going on. The piñata's feeling sad, dejected, lethargic, all kinds of stuff. And then for the physical, I really didn't see too much kind of like things to hit. Not a lot of action. So I am going to say I will use the primary sound palette. All right, so I'm going to establish that folksy kind of color that we will return to every time the time loop resets. So now let's look at section 2, shall we? Let's go here. I'm sorry if you can hear the creaking of my table or desk thing that I'm on. It's being very noisy today. Let's see here. All right, tick marks. A lot going on. Then the door opens. All right, so in section 2, what I want to do is I want to finish the piñata's theme. All right? All right, I don't want to have this go on for too long. And when the door opens, or at least end on a deceptive / half cadence. All right, so I want the full kind of theme to hit here. At least 7 to 8 measures, all right? I can use a slightly shorter version if my theme ends deceptively. So, and we don't have my theme on here at the moment, so I can't give you the example. Sorry about that. Should have thought of that ahead of time. But yeah, so I can use the theme, but I want it to end somewhere around here, all right? I don't want to keep going with the piñata's theme as the girl shows up. Not for too long, at least. I also want to, kind of the physical function, one thing that I noticed is when the tick marks start, a general downward motion would be fun with the music. So I don't know if that's going to be like a scale moving down. I don't know if I'm going to start modulating downwards. I don't know if my chords will start moving downwards. I'm going to do something to kind of highlight like bum, 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 bum kind of sound, something dejected a little bit. As that kind of tick mark gets bigger and bigger and bigger, we see just how lonely and how long the piñata has been by itself. So that's kind of the psychological, the physical, and the technical. So yeah, psychological, I just want to underline, sure things sound progressively sadder and more dejected. All right, now as a reminder, what I'm doing is I'm trying to figure out what each hit point needs to do, because eventually what we're going to do is we need to figure out what kind of hit points each of these are. Do they need to land on the first beat of a measure? Are they fine just being on a strong beat and they don't have to be number 1? Or are they the kind of thing where it's just a quick little idea and you can have it on the off beat? Because not every hit point is likely to land on beat 1 of a single measure. It's just not likely to happen. You could force it to happen, but if you did that, that would often result in having to constantly change time signatures, having to frequently change the tempo, and at that point you're just mutilating the tempo of the scene so much that it no longer feels like actual music. It's not viable for kind of like a melodic musical experience. So we're trying to describe each of these hit points as well as we can, so that we can prioritize them. We can figure out which ones actually need to land on a beat, and which ones just kind of be like toyed with here and there. All right, so that was section number 2. Let's look at section number 3 and see what we got. Door is open. It's the little girl. All right, the little girl humming uses the same motif one of my recent soundtracks did. I think it was someone in the comments last week pointed out. I think it was Matt Lewis pointed it out, and now I can't unhear it. All right, so, and I haven't looked at the comments in a little bit. I'm sorry. Once I'm finished kind of describing these hit points, I will look at it, so I have no idea if people have been asking questions. I have been hiding the comments so I don't get distracted. Hit point 3. All right, so let's watch it again because I realized I'm going to hold a little bit. Door opens. All right, so this is predominantly kind of a little more open-ended. All right. Door opens, and little girls use the little girls motif. We're going to change the mood of the music to something. It says OBS disconnected. Reconnection successful. Did I lose you guys? Hold up. Did the stream just die? That's kind of important. I need to know that. Anyone there? I'm going to assume it looks like there is considerable lag. Yes, it looks like there's considerable lag. I'm seeing this. All right, well, I'm not seeing anything too bad. I'm seeing some jumps, so apologies for that. Yeah, I'm just going to keep going. Hopefully that doesn't cause any issues. All right, awesome. So I'm back on. I'm seeing the comments. Good. That makes me feel better. Whew, I was panicking for a moment. All right, sorry about that. I apologize. Let's get back to work. I'm going to take a quick drink so I can recollect my thoughts. That's where you have one of those moments where like your heart drops from panic. Whew. All right, a couple deep breaths. Let's do this. All right, so use a little rose with it. Oh yeah, that's what I was saying. It is like the first two sections, I'm working with a full-length theme here. All right, I need to try and make sure that I have the space, that I have a tempo and time signature that allow me to introduce the full kind of idea. Then once I've done that, I can kind of, I'm sorry, I am getting distracted again because what it's showing on my stream is very, very different from what I'm actually seeing. No idea. I'm going to ignore that. YouTube's acting up. As long as you guys can see me, I'm fine. Okay, yes, for the third time. Gotta love live streams, right? Third time. Section 1, Section 2, full theme. I need to fit it. Section 3, I have a lot more leeway here. I have a short little idea. All right, if you remember the motif I came up with for the little girl, what was it? It was like, I don't have a piano score on here. I should fix that. But the idea that I had for the little girl was just a one measure idea. It's built to be over one chord. That way it can be very easy to adapt. It can be very kind of short, fragmented, rhythmic idea. All kinds of cool little things. And so because it's such a short idea, I don't really need to worry about it all that much. I don't need to have multiple bars. And this makes this particular hit point a nice transition hit point. I can make sure this one doesn't have to hit a downbeat. This one doesn't have to be at the start of a measure. This one doesn't even have to be in the same time signature. So this is kind of a moment that we'll be able to see we can kind of play catch up if need be. All right, so then section number 4, let's look at this one. And then I am seeing questions. I apologize for falling behind on that. I will be tackling those in just a moment. All right, little girl finds. All right, so in this case, I'm actually seeing these two sections as being kind of combined. All right, so we might score it. In fact, I'm going to say quick upward scale. Quick upwards moving scale as the piñata freezes. There's that. I kind of get that idea. I'm going to add that. Keep going. You're playing the little girl's theme. Then she finds them. Full kind of little girl's theme on section 5. We'll call it section 3 and 4. That should be an and, not a second. All right, and then section 5. Upbeat energy. Use motifs for little girl. And why is it doing something? Okay, and piñata. And that's about it. Nothing too big, nothing too kind of crazy. I've got some basic ideas. So what I've gathered from this is that section 1 and section 2 are going to be the most kind of melodic. All right, so for these two sections, I need to make sure I have enough measures to actually tell the story of my music. Likewise, I also need to make sure that I don't kind of go too fast or too slow to fit the theme in there. Well, I guess that's not likewise. That's kind of the basic same thing. But sections 3, 4, and 5, those are going to be a little less melodic in nature. I can use little motivic statements here and there, but I'm not going to need another 8-bar melody. So for these, I have a lot more freedom. I can change the time signature if I need to. I can use off beats and such. So in other words, as I look at these hit points, these two right here are going to be the most important to land on a downbeat or get as close to a downbeat as I can. 1 has to start on a downbeat. 2 can be on a strong beat. The other 3 they just need to be on a beat. All right, you don't need to have it be on beat number 1 or 3, which are the strong beats. It could be beat 2, it could be beat 4. Technically, if you can make it work, you can make these kind of fit on an and of a beat, like an off beat kind of thing. But the point of kind of going through all these, if you're following along with the lesson plan, is that we are trying to kind of figure out just kind of which hit points are most important to hit on the beat. And I'm repeating myself. I'm sorry. Some days I am better at streaming than others. Today I'm kind of like a little scatterbrained, a little bit tired. Been spending too much time in this room, and then that whole kind of stream fiasco just kind of threw me off for a bit. But basically, I'm gonna kind of read off the lesson plan for a bit just to kind of catch off. The process. Okay, so revisit the list of hit points that you have created during the spotting process. For each hit point, identify the things you like to do with the music. That is what we literally just did. All right, step number 2 is that for each hit point, identify if it needs to fall on a downbeat, strong beat, or just kind of any beat. And that, again, is what we just did. I noticed throughout my scoring that I want this one to be, 1 and 2 need to be on strong beats. 1 needs to be on a downbeat. I need to start my melody. Number 2 can be on a strong beat. So beat 1 or 3. I don't want to mess it up too much. I want it technically about like 7th or 8th measure. The others just need to fall on a beat to begin with. All right, so with all of this information in mind, we're going to create a general estimate of the minimum number of measures that we will need to work with. So keeping that in mind, I'm thinking between number 1 and around number 3, I want at least 10 measures. All right, that way I've got like maybe a measure for an intro. I've got enough time to do my full kind of 8-bar melody for the piñata. And then I can kind of have a bit of an outro or a special cadence, something like that. We're kind of getting a general shape for the melody. Everything else, if I can find a tempo that can get me those 10 measures or so, around that ballpark, then it doesn't really matter as long as the tempo gets me close to these other 3. These other 3 aren't really hard hitters. All right, so here we've got, let me pull that up. Door opens. We don't need to hit right when the door opens. It's a little moment where we learn the little girl lesson. All right, we've got to highlight the moment where the piñata freezes. But there's nothing too definitive that we need to hit on, say, like a beat 1. All right, so I am definitely falling behind on comments. Let's tackle some of these real quick. Let's see here. Darlene says, I have Logic. Can I lock these things in Logic? Oh, definitely. Yeah, this is something. I don't know how it's going to be done on different DAWs, but locking things to picture is very standard practice for a DAW. Awesome. So yeah, Visme already answered that. Then Matt says, is there a way to figure out your time signature in Cubase from the MIDI notes? That's a good question. Really, if you think about it, time signature is about feel. All right, so the whole point of a time signature, if you think about it historically, was to make music notation easier to write. So just like with lots of things in music, there is no definitive, simple, easy, or I should say no definitive correct time signature. There are just appropriate time signatures. All right, so technically something written in 4/4 time could also technically be written in something crazy like 7/8 time. Doesn't mean it would make it intuitive. So yes, you can definitely use time signature from your MIDI to find something. You can also kind of like play around with it every once in a while to find something that fits the scene. It's kind of your own preference, if that makes sense. Visme, fun fact, I saw a random piñata sitting on a desk at school. Awesome. Tamashi, Visme, there we go. Tamashi, so themes, ideas, and hit points matter, not the time signature. Time signature is just one element of the piece. Kind of, yes. So they all matter. All right, they all matter. If you've got a pre-written theme, that kind of informs the time signature. So if we start playing around, you'll see why time signature matters. So right now, the beat number 1 is on beat, the first hit point, the start of the scene starts on beat 3 of measure 1. If we were to just, let's say, change this to 6/4 time. Well, now our time signature changed, and now we're on beat 1 of measure 1. We also find that mark 2 is a little off, but other than that, they're all pretty kind of similar. So you can use time signature as a strategy to hit your hit points. Probably not going to do something crazy like that just yet. We're going to stick to 4/4 time and experiment with some different tempos first. But yeah, so all that to say, it does kind of matter. But it depends on kind of your own approach and what you think is most important. Some people like to start right off the bat with just kind of figuring out a tempo and time signature that works for the scene and then write their theme. I much rather prefer to write my themes first to sketch the ideas that tell the story and then find a way to make it work. So we will be working with mostly 4/4 time since my themes were written in 4/4 time and then finding a way to make that work. Let's see here. So, Tomachi, can you recap info about the mariachi and guitarron and maybe a charango? Yeah, we can do that before the end. That sounds like fun. Probably not right now. Tomachi, do you automate tempo? Sometimes, not always. We'll get into that as we start going into kind of, as we start going to arrangements and such. Welcome Invasion. Let's see. Darlene had to restart. Yep, sorry about that. Yes, there was that little unfortunate issue with the stream earlier. Tamasha, are you familiar about classical guitar bands like Gypsy Kings or Rumba or flamenco music? Familiar with? Yes. Have I listened to a lot of it? Unfortunately not. Will this stay up after the stream? Yes, the streams are always saved to a playlist on my YouTube page. You can follow along there and recap at later times. All right, so now that we've kind of got the idea, the theory behind tempo mapping, let's actually get to it. So this is where the tempo and signature tracks are going to become very important. I'm going to minimize that. Going to lower that. All right, so I know that between 1 and 2, I need time to kind of create my initial sound, my initial theme. Man, I cannot talk today, guys. I am on the struggle bus. Let's see here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little change to my tempo mark over here. Let's bring the marker over here so it doesn't do something crazy like that. I'm going to make a slight change, and all I'm going to do with that change is I'm going to change the tempo using this time warp tool to create beat 1 of measure 1. Where did my thing go? Right on the hit point. I'm going to bring that there. And then let's do click. I'm going to click to events. All right, so there we go. We've got it clicked right there. So right now, basically what I'm doing is I'm ignoring the first half. I'm saying music starts here. And the tempo up to this span is like, I don't know what it had to do here. It's like 47.213. We don't need to worry about this. This first measure, I don't care about. I'm just trying to get measure 1 to map to this. So now that I've got measure 1, and we see that down here is around 88. Let's go back to 70. All right, the original tempo I wrote my theme in and see how that works. All right, once again, it is nice to make sure that your markers are locked and set to time focus so that you don't have them moving all over the place. So if we are on beat 1 of measure 1, set to 70 beat PM, we see that marker number 2 actually takes place around measure 4 or 5. There we go. So I might not actually have time for my entire kind of theme. All right. So what I'm thinking, if I don't have time for the 8-bar theme, I'm going to try and do the 4-bar theme, which is why I wrote the 4-bar version. Now, if I'm going to do the 4-bar version, I want at least a measure or 2 of a little bit of like introduction, at least a measure or 2 of just kind of intro material, then the melody starts. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to try and get marker number 3 to start on beat 7. So the way I can do that is I can use the time warp tool again. I can zoom in a little bit. I can warp this, dragging measure 7 to bar 3. And if we do this, we'll notice a couple things. All right, so this tempo, which is 72.15, it's okay to have a weird tempo like that because normally if you were going to get it recorded, you would have a click that they could follow along with. So we'll delete that. Have a general tempo about 72, 1.5. We'll see that beat 1 starts here. Our second hit point also lines up right on beat 1 of measure 5. And look at that. Our third hit point marks right up with measure 1 of 7. Actually, wow. Yeah, that actually might just kind of be the Yep, that's the magical tempo. Okay, that was a lot faster than I expected. I really thought I'd have to work with this a little bit longer. Oh, what do I do now? All right, so was that a good enough example? I feel like that was too fast. That I found the tempo way too easily. So yeah, basically, kind of recap what I just did. I just made sure, using the time warping tool, to make sure that my first hit point, the very beginning of the film, lined up with measure 1 of the bar. I ignored this kind of empty space because it doesn't matter what the tempo is here, just so long as I get measure 1 to match up. And for all this, I use the time warping tool, which basically allows you to just grab a beat, grab a measure, and drag it so it reaches a certain hit point. And for this one, it would seem that whatever music the editors used to put together this short film must have been around 72 BPM, because these hit points all match up almost precisely with a downbeat, either beat 1 or 3, when set to tempo 72. So that might be something, if you are working with this film, it might be helpful to just kind of write with 72 BPM. Wow, I was not expecting that. All right, I was expecting to spend a bit more time on that. So now we've got that. We've hit those points a little bit, and we're going to notice that the theme ends roughly just before measure 15. So we could, if we wanted, throw in a single measure of 3/4 time on measure 14. Let's do 3/4. And you can kind of use that. You can see how the scene basically now ends right at the end. Now, normally with the full film, if you remember the full film, it keeps going, so it doesn't need to be precise. Wow, that was kind of anticlimactic. Was that useful at all? Like that, I feel like that was so fast. This is, I don't know. You guys are being quiet. Let me know in the comments. All right, I have no idea where the stream is at the moment, because right now the footage YouTube is showing me is, I don't know from how long ago, when I was just typing out the 3 function of film music. So this stream is being all kinds of chaotic for me right now. So apologies if this is kind of throwing people off. I'm gonna have to rewatch this stream afterwards to see what happens. But yeah, so we just kind of accidentally and fortuitously found out that the perfect tempo for this first scene, at least, is 72 BPM, around that ballpark. Yeah, so I don't know, guys. I'm on the struggle bus. I don't know what to do here. Is it just gonna be a fast stream today? I guess we can just kind of recap kind of the ideas. Normally, you'd spend a little bit of time experimenting with different tempi to find out each endpoint. And I have notes in here explaining that sometimes, if you need to help things land a bit easier, fortunately we don't have to do that in here, you can change the time signature. Normally, that's going to work best in between statements. All right, so you've got, say, a 4-bar melody that you can put in real quick. So then after those 4 bars, you've got something, it's not lining up with 4/4 time so well, but if you throw in one measure of 3/4 in between melodic statements, it works. So go for it. You can add small changes here and there, as long as they don't interfere with the musicality of your piece, of what you want to try and do. In fact, in a lot of action scenes, you'll find that the time signature changes quite frequently to help kind of hit the certain points. All right, here we go. Here, Tamashi says not chaotic at all. Yes, I did. Yes, I am. Yeah, I did find it very, I'm kind of thrown off. So, but thank you, Tamashi. Thank you. Let's see here. Does anyone have any questions? Because I feel like I want this to be worth it. We are going to start scoring in a little bit, but does anyone have any questions about this? Because I don't know. I was expecting to spend a little bit more time trying to find the right tempo. Normally, this would be something to be excited about, to be like, oh yeah, that didn't take long at all. But it's different when you're trying to teach something, and I'm worried that happened so quickly that it's not going to be kind of useful for people. I hope it is. But yeah, let me know. Anyone got any questions? Yes, Darlene. Yes, this was very easy today. So let's just do. What we'll do is I'm going to open. Oh, that was from another project. Let's go. You guys are seeing my terrible little thing. Kind of. Here we go. La vida de una piñata. No, I don't want to open the key. I'm going to keep the backup. I don't want to open it. No, I don't want to activate. What I'm going to do here is, if you're noticing, I'm just grabbing the sketches from my original thing. I'm going to go into contact here. I'm going to copy and paste. Don't need that one. I'll keep the full length one so I can see kind of how it works out. Gonna keep the short version, and then we'll go piñatas, themes. Then we'll duplicate it. We'll delete that. Let's go to the other one and get the little girl's themes. Go back to this one. All right, awesome. So let's see here. Let me get this over here, full screen, so I can look at you guys. Tamashi, do you usually do it this quickly? No. Sometimes it is. Like I said, when it does happen this quickly, it's usually something to be celebrating. Something like, oh, awesome, I just found the magical tempo. In fact, I would not be surprised if this film was edited with temp music, which most of them are. I would not be surprised if this beat could potentially last for the entire piece. If all of our hit points just happen to line up magically with 72 BPM, and if so, it probably means that the music used to edit the film was 72 BPM. All right, and that it's going to land well because that's the piece they use to kind of hit it. So every once in a while you have a kind of a magical moment like that. At other times, it can be quite challenging, especially when the mood of the film changes. And we will kind of get more experience with different scenes as we go on. But when the mood of a film changes dramatically, like when things go from happy-go-lucky, fun time kind of thing to suddenly a kind of like action-oriented moment, they're running for their lives kind of thing. When things flip like that, typically the tempo can change quite dramatically. And so you need to find a way, you have to find the moment when the tempo changes and how much it changes by. I've had scenes where I've had to not only change the tempo, but the time signature at a specific hit point, where you could say, all right, 72 BPM works really well, but then after, say, like hit point 3, wow, suddenly nothing is lining up anymore. So you would mark a change in the tempo. You'd say, all right, something changed. Now they're happening more frequently. Let's try going with a faster tempo kind of thing. So when it's a more complicated scene, things can take longer. But it depends on kind of like the difficulty of the scene. So now that we've kind of got the hit points, let's just see how long it takes to actually score. So real quick, let's review the themes that I've written for the piñata. All right, we'll open it. Here we've got the full-length theme. Let's make this a bit smaller so we can follow along. So this is the full-length theme I originally wanted to work with. Just a piano sketch. And then we have the 4-bar version, which is what we're going to be working with. And then we have just kind of the simple 1 or 2 bar ideas. So of these 3, I found out we don't really have time for the full-length one, but we can work with the 4-bar idea. So let's move all of this so it all starts on beat 1. And then why do I have everything on 30-second notes? I must have been working on something earlier. Let's do this. And suddenly I'm also realizing, why is this not, if we look closer, things are not lining up. Things are slightly off. Let's go in, and this is because I just copy and pasted this from a separate project that was at 70 BPM. So all we're going to do, actually no, this all kind of lines up still. We're just going to quantize things a little bit, clean them up. Quantizing, all quantizing does is it snaps the values. It snaps each note to the nearest value. So if I have my grid set to 16th notes and I hit quantize, you'll notice that every single note is going to just simply snap to the initial value. That's fine. Didn't see anything change too much. Next I'm going to do is lengths. Everything snaps to the nearest length. And then we'll do ends to cut everything off. In fact, I kind of like the idea of that descending line taking place on measure 5, where we have kind of the tick mark. So we've got 1 bar of introductions. We can do something fun there. We got the theme playing. Sad little piñata. And the run down. That works pretty well. So then we've got the theme, we've got the space, we've got a 1 measure that we're going to have to kind of fill out. We're going to have to add a little bit of an introduction to. In fact, real quick, let's just kind of drag this out. So then we've hit both of those. All right, we've hit the theme that I wanted. We hit a little like kind of downward moving idea for the tick marks like I wanted. In fact, let's open our notepad so we can see what we did. We are definitely evoking kind of a lazy, sad atmosphere. I have not used the primary sound palette yet. Right now we're just sketching out the ideas. I will eventually kind of orchestrate everything. But let's see here. Finished by themes. So then, yeah, I kind of wrapped up the piñata's theme here. When the tick mark started, I wanted a general downward moving motion. I thought that'd be fun in the music, and it just kind of worked out fortuitously that I had already written that into the theme. If I wanted to, I could have changed things up. In fact, I'm getting a little annoyed because everything is working out the way I planned it to. And while that's beautiful in like real world application, it's not the most useful for teaching. All right. The whole point is I'm supposed to show the different challenges you run into. And so far, everything's just kind of worked out, which is nice and annoying at the same time. But kind of makes sure things sound a bit more progressively sadder and more dejected. That works. So section 3 and 4 is when we want the little girl's theme. All right, and that lands right on. And so here we have the 2 versions of the little girl's theme. Where's the piano? Why is the piano not playing? There we go. So we've got... We kind of got the dramatic kind of minor one. But then we also have the kind of sweet. Kind of little... Oh, it's a friend. She's nice. The piñata is rescued from his pain. So let's look in right now. Measure 4. Let me pull up the screen. Measure 7 is where the little girl enters. So I'm just going to copy and paste the little... It's where we first hear the doors open. All right, 1 measure of interlude. Just as he's about to mark it. The little girl. All right, so we're going. Fun little time. I'm going to have to write some peppier music. Little girl is playing. So what if we pull up the notes again? So we know that at section 3 and 4, use little girl's theme, change the mood of music to something a bit more energetic or hopeful. Quick upwards moving scale as the piñata freezes. Upbeat energy in section 5. So let's look for the moment where the piñata freezes. That's number 4, isn't it? Or is it 5? Pull up the screen again. So that was 4. Yep. So we can just do a quick kind of... Where are we going? We don't need to do anything too crazy or anything too accurate. I'm just getting a basic idea down. So I'm just going to go G up to C. Or we'll bring that up. Create a little shape. And again, that's not going to be my final idea. I'm just getting something down real quick. Alright, little girl's coming around. Lots of fun stuff. And then this is going to be a bit of a tricky point. We got to figure out what pitch is going on with this and kind of write something to involve with that. So then I think right around here we could actually probably bring back the piñata's theme. around measure 5. Let's see how it works. Let's find a version. Let's do the Piñatas theme. And then, of course, it's going to sound kind of sad and dejected. In fact, let's do the second half. It's going to sound a little sad and dejected, but we can make adjustments during the arrangement. Make it sound a little bit pluckier, a little more upbeat. Let's see where we can make this fit, right? Let's see what happens if we just copy and paste. And then set it to end right at the end. One beat off. Let's lengthen this to see what happens, to make sure that we're not overstepping. So yeah, I do want to make sure I end on beat 1. So all we're going to do, we're going to experiment, bringing that down. Actually, let's just leave that. And we'll just end it here and see what happens. Oh, what did I change? And then we can just have it be a sudden change. We'll do something crazy. All right, make it a sudden, unexpected kind of cadence, something that changes suddenly after 3 beats. It's something fun. Or we could actually, to avoid having to do anything crazy, and again, taking the simplest way out, we can just end it all a measure later. So we don't have to worry about the 3 beat measure after all. So let's see how this looks when tied. Let's look at the whole thing, actually. Let's look at the whole thing and see how this looks with the scene. Any questions? You guys are being awful quiet at the moment. This has been one of the more chaotic things for me in terms of everything going wrong by going horrifically correctly. Let's see. All right, so we got this. All right, little girls entering. Glad I feel like this. All right, just a little quick upwards run. All right, so I like that. That works so well so far. Let's try adding the little girl's theme into a certain couple places. So this version is written to fit over a major chord. So let's see, we've got, wait, why is everything raised? Let's see, so this is supposed to be a G natural. So yeah, I accidentally just added everything. So this is the C major, then A minor, then B major. Let's try that. We'll go to B for now and just see how that works. Oh, actually, let's just do it over here as a call and response. And is it on an offbeat? Or yeah, it's on an offbeat. And this is E minor. Let's do E major. Or let's just do E minor, actually. Let's stick to the original. Let's see here. So E minor. Yeah, let's do F sharp. And let's raise the velocity a little bit so we can hear it a bit easier. So now I'm getting to use both themes at the same time. What happens if I try layering it over here as well? So this is G major. So if I try going to D. Nah, it doesn't work too well. Oh well, I'll ignore that. So let's mute the film again. Let's watch it again. And this is basically what it comes down to. All right, you're going to be writing, inserting different ideas. It's beautiful because you've got your themes pre-written and you can kind of just experiment with copying and pasting those nice little sketches you have of those 3 sketches I told you to make. The full-length melody, the half-length melody, and the short little motif. Really, no more questions. Normally we're getting a lot more comments. Are you guys just kind of vibing, watching, or are you all logging off? Let me know. My head is in a weird spot today. I'm gonna watch again. If anyone has any questions, put them in the comments. I would be very much relieved to know that people are still watching. All right, let's do this. All right, so intro. Once we get the basic ideas out, that's when I'll flesh in the empty spaces. Sad little piñata, downward moving motion. Little empty space that we need to fill in. Then the little girl arrives. Empty space that we need to fill in again. Little run up that I want to work with. Go, and the scene ends. All right, awesome. I'm seeing some comments now. Darlene, I'm just absorbing the information. Good. Matt, I'm watching in the gym on the treadmill and literally tripping as I type this. Good for you, Matt. Keep going. All right, training is good. Awesome. I have certainly watched composing videos at the gym before as well. Awesome. Good. So people are still watching. That's awesome. I'm glad. I have not scared people away with how easy everything was. And how quickly it all came together. That's kind of the nice thing. You'll notice that this actually happens quite often. That when you've written things ahead of time, things fall into place. The very first kind of short films I worked on, when I was first getting started and entering as many competitions as I could, I would start out with this whole thing backwards. I would start by tempo mapping first. All right, I'd say, all right, what's the tempo the scene has? And I'd come up with some weird tempo and different changes to hit all the hit points and stuff. And I would then struggle to figure out what I'm going to do musically. The beautiful thing about having a theme sketched out is this is no longer panic, try to make it work. It's now, I know what I have to work with. I know what themes I can use. I know what materials I can use. And now it's a matter of just fitting them in. It's really nice. Matt asks, will there be more interview videos? Oh, definitely. Yeah, so I assume you're talking about my interview with Zach Heidi. I've got all kinds of people that I would love to interview. I haven't emailed anyone just yet, though. If there is another YouTuber, or wow, did my voice crack? Yeah, my voice cracked. You know I'm tired and having too much caffeine when my voice starts to crack. Anyways, as you say, interviews. Yes, that's right. So if there are YouTubers or just people in general that you would like me to try and collaborate with, there's no guarantee because I'm always willing for it, but you never know what their schedule is like. You never know what they're interested in doing or whatever. But let me know. I'll reach out to people and I'll see what we can talk about. So let me know who you want me to interview and what you would like me to talk about with them. So with Zach Heidi, we both love storytelling. So our topic was basically storytelling with film scoring. Yeah, all the different cool little things like that. But let's start filling in some of this space. All right, so this is where I can start thinking of things a little bit more musically, especially for the beginning. All right, so I know I have this theme. And I need to find a way to kind of open up to it. Probably, let's just copy and paste the original kind of chord. Get a nice little... Get the original kind of accompaniment started. We could could try, let's try raising this, shall we? To a G major. Went too high. There we go. We could try an upwards moving motion. What if we tried using something similar to our ending instead? I kind of like the idea. I kind of like that idea. So let's have this moving up a little bit though. And what if we try going up instead? Oops. Let's do G, A, B, and then D. And then we should watch along too. What if we try raising the whole thing an octave? See how that impacts the sound. We're just kind of playing around. That works. Now, what if we just continue? What if we continue as if the theme were going to keep going as normal? So we've got and so what if we interrupt it? What if we copy and paste it, and then the theme gets interrupted by the little girl's theme? Don't know how I like that. We might be able to just transpose the little girl's theme. Awesome, so that works. Let's just change the chord, shall we? So it goes C major. So it goes C major. Actually, it's both C major. So what if, instead of C major, what's the chord I would normally go to in this theme? All right, let's move this whole thing so it makes more sense. All right. There we go. So we're still there. So we would go... Wait, what's going on here? Oh, it's because it's changed to 3-4 times. So let's do one of these. All right, let's drag this, below. It's muted, and there we go. So yeah, we're on beat 1. So that would be C, so then it would be B major. So what if, let's go up here. And then let's swap our chord to B major. So it's the same chord progression. I don't know how I feel about that. Let's watch it. Let's watch it again. There's going to be a lot of watching, a lot of replaying. kind of works. I think with the actual performance, I could make it smoother with the arrangement. Now, the cool thing about this is I'm not committing to any particular ideas. I can always come back, and if I don't like it when I'm doing the arrangement, fix it. But for now, since this is just kind of an example, I think I'll leave it. So here, Tamashi, can you try a scary chord, augmented or minor, in the dark region at the end? Could you? Definitely. Let's check it out. So we know at the end, so there's basically two lines of thought. All right? It all comes down to whether or not you want to highlight this killer license plate. All right? If you want to emphasize and kind of show off, or like, again, the psychological function of music, you want to reveal hidden intentions, hidden beliefs, or thoughts. Here, we are getting our first clue that the little girl is a killer. So we know something's going to go off, so it depends on what you want to play. It depends on how you're telling your story, because all of this has to do with how you're telling story. Personally, I want to try and have things be a little fun and make this a little more antsier at the beginning when we see this, but not really hit the true kind of serial killer vibes until this moment. All right, when the little girl finally reveals her intentions and her true colors. So yes, could you? Definitely. And if that's how you want to story, go for it. Personally, it's not what I am going to go with. Matt Lewis, but excellent idea, Tamashi. That is a really cool idea, and it all depends on, like I said, your approach to storytelling. So Matt Lewis suggests a flat 6. So if we're in the key of C major, we could try A major, which is, or it would be A flat major is what he's saying. Because to get the flat major, the flat 6 major in a major key, normally the 6th chord in a major key is A minor. So to make that major, you're going to go lower the A to A flat and lower the E to E flat. I like that. That kind of works well. Is that what I was doing originally? I don't know. It sounds familiar. Cool. I like it. We'll leave it there for now. Almost done with the sketch. I like that. So now we've got basically 2 measures of transitioning material that we need to hit. And we could potentially fill that with anything we would like. Unfortunately, at the moment, my brain is pretty fried, so I think I might call it here, folks. But awesome. So it was a great stream, I hope, for all of you. If you have any more questions, please throw them in the comments below. I'm sorry I was a little off my game today. Hopefully that didn't come off too much, other than, I think, like the dozen times or so that I said I was off my game. So I apologize for that, but I hope it was still useful. I hope you learned a lot of information. As usual, you can find all of the information we covered in the lesson plan. Free to download with the link below. This is yours to keep forever. And as usual, there is a suggested homework assignment, all right? So use the spotting notes that we have at this point. Last week was about spotting. You should have the lesson notes. You should have all that. Use your notes and your scores and everything you've come up with up to this point to map each scene, a tempo map, all right? The more consistent you can get from scene to scene, the easier it will be for you. But whatever you can do, go with it. Use the process we learned today to help make sure that you keep a clean file, a clean DAW, a clean project, and start messing around with how you can apply each of your themes and ideas. If you haven't already, sign up to join the competition, all right? They have a coupon code for us, Tabletop, to get 10% off your registration fee. Also, please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it anywhere you think it might be helpful. All of those things help so much with the channel, to help it grow, because the algorithm loves to see these 3 things almost more than anything else. And yeah, don't forget to leave a comment below. What kind of videos would you like to see on this channel? What other material, what interviews, etc. And if you would like to show your support for the channel, please consider stopping by the website and checking out all the cool books and such that I have for sale there. There is a coupon code IFMC to get 15% off your total order. So yeah, awesome. Let's listen to it real quick. We'll watch the thing again. And yeah, if you have any questions, any comments, speak now or forever hold your peace. Let's listen to this piece one more time so we can all just be sick of it and move on. So I just need to figure out these two measures is what I'm missing. So maybe just some chromatic medians or something. Modulate. In fact, you know what? Let's do that real quick. Let's just modulate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise all of this one key. So instead of going from C back to C major, let's go to G major. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is one key clockwise along the circle of fifths. And when you move clockwise along the circle of fifths, you get, which I will pull up a picture of the circle of fifths for people who aren't familiar. Circle of fifths basically just categorizes how keys are arranged. You move clockwise, you add a sharp. You move counterclockwise, you add a flat or subtract a sharp. Moving clockwise, so adding sharps or subtracting flats, builds energy and tension. Moving counterclockwise tends to have the effect of a release of tension or getting a little bit darker. Cool little fun fact for you if you didn't know that. So I have moved up a perfect fifth. So we'll hear how that sounds. And now that I've moved a fifth, I just need to find a nice little transitionary kind of thing. Maybe play the Little Girls theme a couple more times. And find a smooth way to modulate. And that moved a little too high for my liking, so I'm going to drop it an octave. And there's ways I can move around with it. We'll see if I like it. I might keep it. I might not. It's a little low for my liking. So we might experiment around. We might try a couple different things. But I do think I would like to modulate one way or another. Let's see. Matlis, will you be using any Phrygian in this? Probably. Phrygian works really well for kind of darker sounds. It also works very well for Western type films. Even things that aren't particularly dark. Lots of Western films tend to use borrowed chords from the Phrygian mode to kind of create that sound, so it's very likely I probably will at some point. Tamashi, Phrygian will be very dark or sad, I think. Yes, that could work really well for kind of the horror movies, but good point. Darlene, is it my imagination or is the music sounding like it is covering up the sound of these sound effects? Why? Great idea. It is not your imagination. It is because I have muted the sound effects. I did that to kind of focus on the music for now. That is something I would not do in when I'm doing the final arrangement. In fact, now that I'm seeing this, I do like your idea, Tamashi, more and more. I think I might start doing a slightly darker cadence at the end to kind of match it. But again, this is all about the sketching process. You're just supposed to go in, put down some ideas, and adjust them until you like it. Once you like it enough, then you can start arranging it. Let's see. It's also Mixolydian could be fun too. Okay, awesome. So yeah, that seems to have covered everybody's questions. All right. Thank you again to everyone who obviously I have to catch up on some vids, but school won't let me. No worries. Take your time. These videos aren't going anywhere. The streams are nice, but the recordings are up as well. So, but for the next time, my friends, I will see you. Keep studying, keep working hard, keep writing new music. Next time, I'll be a little more well-rested and ready to tackle the lesson. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.